All right, today's topic is for pastors and ministry leaders, even parachurch ministry leaders. We're going to talk about the Great Commission and your ministry. If you're a good ministry leader, you're going to want to understand how to apply this in your world. So, the Great Commission, Matthew 28, Jesus told his disciples, "Go make disciples of all nations, baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and then teach them to obey all the commands that I've given you." And he said, "Be sure of this, I'll always be with you, even to the end of the age." So this is the Great Commission. We all know it. We all believe in it. But I've got a few things for you to think about. The first one is this. We're supposed to be on mission with Jesus, right? That's what a co-mission is. It was his mission. Jesus made disciples. And then now it's our mission. We're supposed to make disciples, right? So let's go back to the text. Jesus came and told his disciples. Notice he didn't come and ask his disciples. He didn't come and suggest to his disciples. This isn't the great suggestion. This is actually the Great Commission. We're supposed to be doing this with Jesus. The next thing I want you to see is the essence of the commission is going and making disciples. Now, I want you to really think about that in your ministry. Are you going and making disciples? Or is your ministry model one where you expect people to come to you and then you'll tell them about Jesus? So remember, we're on mission with Jesus, so we should be going and making disciples. Here's the second thing. The number of disciples made is the real metric. If you're a good ministry, just like any good business, you know what you're measuring. At the end of the day, what is the most important thing that you measure? It's not butts in the seat. It's not the amount of money you bring in. It's none of that stuff. It is the number of disciples made. So ask yourself the hard question. How many disciples has our ministry produced? And you better know what you mean by that. Now at Pursue God, this is what we mean by a disciple. We think Jesus envisioned people who did these three things. A disciple is someone who, first of all, trusts Jesus for salvation. Secondly, honors God in their life and their choices and their habits and their lifestyle. And then thirdly, a disciple is someone who goes out and makes disciples. So how many disciple makers has your ministry made? And I want to go back to the text because look, I see this picture in this passage. When Jesus said, "Go baptize them," that means if you've baptized them that they've trusted Jesus. So that first thing in the circle has happened. So we shouldn't just be making good Christians better Christians. We should be baptizing new Christians. Number two, we should teach them to obey all the commands he's given. That means that they're honoring God. So Jesus doesn't want us to just stop at converting people. He wants us to make people who know how to honor God in their life and their choices and lifestyle. And then lastly, look, if at the very beginning he says, "Go make disciples," what that means is that the disciples that the original disciples would make will go too. They'll listen to this commandment and they'll do the same thing. 2,000 years later, we're part of this downline and we too should make disciples. So see, I see the full circle picture in this passage. One more thing. If you don't have a clear strategy for making disciples, it just won't happen. Listen, I'm not trying to point fingers because this was my church years ago. We didn't have a clear strategy. We knew the Great Commission. We wanted to accomplish the Great Commission, but we weren't really doing it. If we had gone through this topic, we would have to admit that we weren't making any disciple makers, or at least very few disciple makers. And maybe your ministry or your church or your parachurch ministry is having the same issue. And I want you to really think and pray about this. Maybe it's because your strategy, and I think your strategy includes the tools that you use, maybe your strategy just isn't clear enough. And that's what pursuegod.org is for. That's why it's free. So I encourage you to check out our tools, but also talk about this topic with your group or with a mentor.